Welcome. It is now 6:07. I'd like to call this meeting to order. We are here for the sole purpose of the Athens Gen pilot. So I'm going to read the public notice. I have the sign-in sheets. And I'll do a little bit of housekeeping. Bathroom is to the back here. In case of an emergency, the exits are here and to the front of the building. If you did sign in and you did not mark yes, there will be opportunity at the end if you would like to speak. I will ask for hands at the end. Currently, our policy is 3 minutes per person. This is a large crowd. We were approached by one member of the community. We're going to double his time in the beginning, and somebody else already forego their 3 minutes. So we will allow Lee Palmetier to speak for 9 minutes. Okay, so I'm going to read the public notice. Notice is hereby given that a public hearing pursuant to section 859-A of the New York State General Municipal Law as amended will be held by the Greene County Industrial Development Agency on the 29th of March of 2023 at 6 p.m. local time at the E.J. Arthur Elementary School, 51 3rd Street, Athens, New York, 12015. The GCIDA is proposing to provide incentives to New Athens Generating Company in the form of a payment in lieu of taxes. The application submitted by the company and relevant supporting documents submitted to the GCIDA in connection with the project may be reviewed by the public on the IDA's website at www.greenida.com. Inquiries about the project and the GCIDA assistance should be directed to April Ernst, Executive Director. My email is ernst@greenida.com. The GCIDA will, at the above stated time and place, hear all persons with views in favor or opposition to the rendering of financial assistance by the GCIDA for the project. Minutes of the hearing will be made available to the public and members of the GCIDA. So with that, I'm going in random order of the sheets that are signed in. So as you signed in, it might not be in that exact order, but everybody will get a chance to speak. I ask, as I try to slow down myself, that you speak into the mic slowly for the stenographer. And if you have written comment that you'd like to submit, you can hand that in as well. Thank you. Okay. First, I have Larry Farbstein, Athens. Did you?
Thank you. I'm here on behalf of the town and the town board. And the pilot, as it's currently proposed, I have to tell you, is unacceptable to the town board for a number of reasons, not the least of which is that it doesn't provide sufficient financial remuneration to the town. And in addition, some of the arguments that were made with respect to the IDA that's contained in the document that you provided on your website, at best is confusing, at worst is disingenuous in the sense that you're conflating different types of properties and different issues. In fact, there was a pilot for 20 years, and that pilot has expired. The generating company is asking for $30 million that it expects to spend to refurbish the facility in some degree, unclear as to how, but yet wants an additional 20 years in order to do so, even though we know that that's but a fraction of what it would cost to replace or reproduce the plant today. In addition, there are issues of what happens if the plant goes out of business. What I can tell you is, unlike a supermarket, unlike an office building, unlike virtually any other type of facility, power plants are unique in the following sense. They're unique because the state of New York, through the PSC and the New York Independent System Operator, ISO, and the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission, which is called FERC, as the name, they require reliability on the grid, which means that they know how much energy or expect how much energy will be produced in any given day, month, year. And given the vagaries of power plants, some of them are down for work, they're off the grid at any given time. They require at a minimum a 20% cushion to make sure that we don't have rolling blackouts, brownouts, or et cetera. That is the reason that within your document, you talk about ICAP payments. ICAP payments are installed capacity payments. They're paid to every generating plant in the state of New York to make sure that they're able to function when called upon. The other issue has to do with
The time is up.
the time is up.
Mhm.
Okay.
He's representing the town of Bath. He's an expert in this field, the town of Bath.
Point of order. Lee, you did contact us ahead of time. I extended your period. He can speak at the end if he would like, and we are accepting written comments until next Friday. Okay, yes,
How about that, Larry? Paul, your graciousness is only exceeded by your good looks.
Oh, thank you. That's, I would say about that. About you, my brother.
okay.
We do know each other, just in case. And for a long time.
So getting back to what I was saying about the ICAP payments. That the state through the ISO makes that payment. So the issues here are a number of issues. One is, what is the $33 million being used for? Because to the degree that it increases the functionality of the power plant, obviously, A, it would run more, and B, by having this additional capacity, the ICAP payments would also increase. Number two, in the document, you talked about settlements that occurred for other power plants in the state of New York. As it turns out, they were my clients as well. So I can speak about the plant in Haverstraw, the Bowline plant, and the plants in Newburgh, Roaston, and Danskammer. And let me tell you what the difference is. So we have the Athens power plant. It was built circa 2000, as you all know, living here. It's what's called a combined cycle plant. What is a combined cycle plant? Well, the best I can tell you in terms of an illustration is a turbocharged engine. So for those of you who happen to have cars that are turbocharged, what it does is it spins the turbines, combined cycle, produces steam. The steam is put back in and spins the turbines again. That is compared and contrasted to the plants that were put forth in the IDA document, whether it was Bowline, whether it was Roaston, whether it was Danskammer, that are simple cycle plants. They were built, Danskammer was built in the 60s, Roaston and Bowline were built in the 70s, and they're simple cycle. And what does that mean? It means really, there's a term of art called spark spread. And what spark spread is the amount of electrons, or the amount of kilowatts or megawatts that can be produced for a given amount of energy that it's necessary, whether it's natural gas, whether it's oil, whether it's anything else. The efficiency of the Athens plant, when compared and contrasted to the plants that are set forth in your document, is apples to oranges, night and day, because those are simple cycle and they don't have anywhere near the BTU efficiency that the Athens power plant has. So because I don't want to take up other people's time, just to sum up, you have a difference in the plants. You're talking about a partial improvement that could very well increase not only the efficiency of the plant, but in terms of how much it could produce, which would mean it would get more revenue from the production of kilowatts, but also would increase the amount of ICAP payments that it could get. And you have the fact that the state and the federal government require this cushion to make sure that when you go to turn on or turn on your lights, that they turn on. Without it, you wouldn't know. You don't want to be, in rolling brownouts or blackouts. So for all those reasons, plus whatever settlements were made for those other kinds of properties, they're not apples to apples. And with that, I'll let other people speak.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Next on my list, I have James Bucci, Greenville.
Good evening, everyone. My name is James Bucci. I'm from the Greenville area. I own a small company, Bucci Painting Corp. We do industrial coatings applications, and I'm here to say a positive word about the power plant. We've been working there since 2006. My company was very small in its infancy when we started, and it's been a great opportunity for a small business. We've had anywhere from 1 to 10 employees working at the plant on different projects, many weeks out of the year since then. And as far as the facility goes, compared to other locations we've worked throughout the state and region, it's extremely clean. There's a culture of, and also, at least from what I've experienced compared to other places, there's a concern for the environment. One of the things that we focus on a great deal is preservation, so maintaining the facility, and also maintaining tanks and containments and things of that nature, which would be a fail-safe if there was to be any kind of issue. So as far as our employees go and our company, we've benefited greatly. Because of the work there is a bit of a multiplier effect that goes on. One for the local guys and their wages that live throughout the area, but also we get tens of thousands of dollars in materials from local vendors. So I'm assuming that affects the tax base there as well. And the people there are very concerned from what I've seen for the local town. I think there'll be some people here to speak to some other charities of that nature that will that I think benefit the area greatly. So it's just a positive word from us. We truly appreciate the facility, and I would say it's definitely a step above as far as compared, like I said, to other locations. That's my little tidbit for you on that. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Stephen Rainfeld.
Good evening. My name is Stephen Rainford. I work for a company called Northeast Precision Welding. Again, like Mr. Bucci's company, we're involved both on a regular basis, but also for any kind of a circumstance that means the plant must be maintained. Our employees, again, live in this area. We have regular business with them, have done for the last at least 10 years. And we know their culture to be one of safety. They won't let us on the site unless we have the same culture that they prescribe. So as long as we do our work right, we can watch them all the time. We see them doing their work the way they should. So safety I see as their main concern. I also think that our employees bring, a lot of energy to their business, and together we make it safe. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Patty Duchesne.
Hello, my name is Patty Duchesne. I'm the Executive Director of Matthew 25 Food Pantry in Catskill. I'm not here to debate anybody's assessments, who's right, who's wrong. I am here like the following people who spoke. I have run the food pantry of Catskill. I serve Athens, Hoxsaki, Columbia County, Ulster County. Whoever comes to my door, I serve. And on that note, it takes a lot of hands to help me. We're a non-for-profit organization. Athens Generator has been graciously kind enough to help us every year. I serve between 100 and 150 families every month. When Christmas comes around, Athens Gen is there to help, not only financially, but also as faculty staff. Their employees come down, the management comes down. They have helped me pick up 125 turkeys to bring down, so the families and community is very important to me, that they can have a wonderful Thanksgiving dinner as well. I couldn't do it with Athens Gen helping, and I'm not the only one they donate to. Besides Thanksgiving and Christmas, we've had Easter, we've had food along the way. If there was physical help, they would come and help us physically. But also, they've helped out teenagers, they've helped out youth groups, they've helped out libraries. They have helped a lot. We used to have the cement plant in Catskill who used to help, but we lost them. All I'm saying is I'm here on a positive note for Athens Gen. I'm concerned about their families and the people that are employed there. I hope that they continue to be able to have their jobs as well. Thank you for your time. Appreciate it.
Joan Cameron. Is it not Joan or John? John? John Cameron.
Right. Yeah. My name is John Cameron. I'm a resident of Athens. Personally proposed the pilot program in general. I feel that pilot program was put in place to entice the power plant to be built and be brought here, which in my opinion should not have been in the first place because it was built on a green area, which hardly ever takes place for a plant of that size doing what it did. Also, the fact that Athens, unlike Hoxsaki, does not have a lot of commercial tax revenue brought into it. And we are being robbed of the commercial taxes that can be paid to the town, which our town desperately needs. There had been a couple contractors who spoke earlier in front of me, and they've spoke mainly on the reputation of the plant, which I don't think is in question. I think what's in question is whether or not they should pay their full share, fair share of taxes. If you look at the entities that are involved, in my opinion, there's three. There's the IDA, there's the town of Athens tonight. Town of Athens is also town of Catskill, but we're talking about Athens tonight. And there is the plant, the IDA, and the town of Athens. If we look and take those three entities and the pilot program is put into place, who makes out and who doesn't? Okay, the town of Athens doesn't. The other two do. The IDA gets a nice fee. and the power plant gets tax break. If we are sitting here and talking about keeping this plant, and it's very important to the IDA to have this pilot plant put into place, I would ask the IDA to donate their fee back to the town of Athens as a gift. That's all I have to say in this subject. Thanks for the tax.
Richard Wendig.
I'm deferring. Deferring my time. I'm sorry.
It's fine. We'll defer your 3 minutes to somebody else. Okay? Carol Pfister? Okay. Paige Bayer? Oh, I'm sorry. I see. Okay.
Moving right along.
Chris Pfister?
Thank you, everyone. I'm Chris Pfister. I'm a former county legislator and I was mayor in Athens for several years. And I was here. Oh, sick. I'm Chris Pfister. I'm the mayor. I was the mayor of Athens for several terms. And I was around here when the last pilot was done. And there was a lot of controversy at that time. But as John said, I have a problem. You know, you look at all the businesses around here, little businesses, restaurants, mom and pop stores, and whatever. And none of them get a tax break that I know of. Once in a while, you might find a program they fit into. And whereas this organization comes in and it's massive tax breaks. I just don't understand. I know how it got there, but I just don't see why it's something that's permitted at whatever level, the state, county, whatever. And I really question how the IDA should be involved in it. And the history of Athens, Jen, is pretty sad. I mean, they've had 4 bankruptcies and they've been sold and resold. I don't know who owns the place, and I don't know if they even know who owns the place anymore. And now we're getting another company in here, NAGC. Never heard of them in my life. And now they're going to be in here. And they're going to get the same breaks. One of my questions is, I have more questions, I guess, than answers, but one of my questions is, NAGC, what's the history of them? Are they in good financial shape? You know, are we going to have the same problems with them as we have with everybody else? And I'd like to know what their profitability has been over the last several years. The one thing that always seems to be missed in all these discussions is, how does the IDA calculate the fee that is charged for themselves, and how do they come up with the pilot numbers? I've never seen anything on it. Maybe I just missed it, but I'd love to know that information. Now, SGN is requesting $33 million for improvements, and I wonder how that compares with other facilities. Is this a normal request? It does. If you spread it out over 20 years, it doesn't seem very high. It seems it should be the day cost of doing business, and every other company has to go through that. They have to do repairs. They have to modernize their plant, and most of them don't get any special consideration. And I wonder how the age of the Ascension plant compares to all these other facilities. Is it really that decrepit that we only can survive? They can only survive if we give them another bunch of money to run. So, and my last question is, so there's a lot of in the document about, and that's the binding statement. A lot of discussion in there about the demand for power is decreasing and so on. But it seems to me that demand is at least for peaker type plants, which only operate when there's an extraordinary need of power. For those, I would think the demand would get even higher, because all these other plants are going to be put out of business. Old plants that pollute and don't fit into the state's plan, they're going to disappear. And it would seem that this plant would have a golden opportunity. I thank you very much.
Margaret, you have a question mark next to your name. Margaret Menkel.
I yield my time.
Okay. Lee Palmetier.
So how long am I? Just let him. You can speak at the end anyway.
Thank you for those who yielded time to me, and I think it's good because the IDA didn't even describe what is going on. So I'm going to take a couple of minutes to describe what is going on with this deal. And a couple of the contractors that spoke about how important the plant is to the community kind of missed the mark, and I think partly because the IDA didn't describe to us what is going on. So the power plant was built 20 years ago, was given a pilot for 20 years with the intent that it would return to the tax rolls, and here we are 20 years later. And the only question is, does it return to the tax rolls and be taxed like any other citizen, corporate, or residential in the town of Athens? Or does the IDA enter into a payment in lieu of tax agreement? And so that's what we're here for. And the people that spoke about how wonderful the plant is, which may very well be true, I think there is a perception that the plant is going to go away if this pilot agreement is not signed, sealed, and delivered. And that's entirely untrue. So whose interests are being served by this pilot agreement? I think we have to review the history of Athens Gen, which goes back 20 years. And I think that will reveal the answer to that question, whose interests are first and foremost here with this new proposed deal. So Athens Gen back in the early 2000s was looking for a place to build a power plant. Under Article 10 of the Public Service Law, local zoning was overridden, completely neutralized, and the state is the agency that decided whether or not this plant would be sited here in Athens. So I refer you to the State Board of Electrical Generating Siting opinion and order in case number 97-F-1563. That it's an opinion and order granting certification of environmental compatibility and public need. I believe it was 2000. I'm not sure if that's the year. Just a couple of quotes to tell you that Athens Gen was not incentivized to come here. They wanted Athens. Athens did not want them. Nobody asked to have a power plant built in our backyard so that we could incur the risks, environmental and health risks that go along with it. But here's a quote from page 97. No other site has been shown to provide reasonable access to needed fuel and water. And then another quote on page 100. Applicant does not have alternative sites for its facility under consideration. In other words, there was no need to give incentives for the Athens generating power plant to locate in Athens from day one. They were coming. We had no choice. They were a more than $1 billion asset, which would have generated tremendous amount of tax revenues to the town. A fair payment because they're a very valuable property. But they know the IDA is open for business. And so they go to the IDA and say, hey, how about we work out a deal? How about we don't pay all those taxes? And how about you get a lot of money for giving us tax abatements? Isn't that a good deal? Well, yeah, it's a great deal for the IDA, a great deal for Athens Gen, and a lousy deal for the town of Athens, the Catskill School District, and Greene County. And I see that there are some legislators here, county attorney here. I'm so happy because I think you need to focus on what your IDA is doing and whose interests are they serving. So that's the original deal. In 2002, that's when the original pilot was signed and delivered. In 2007, chapter number 2, another example of whose interests are being served. You have to maybe decide yourself here. In 2007, Athens Gen did, in round numbers, but pretty close, a $300 million mortgage refinance. Very little bit of that money, if any, was going to be reinvested in Athens to improve the facility, create jobs. It was just an internal corporate financial maneuver. And just like you and I have to pay mortgage taxes, they would have had to pay mortgage taxes. At the closing, a check written to Athens and the state of New York back in 2007. That check would have been about $1.5 million to Athens and about $750,000 to the state. But the IDA, Athens Gen knows the IDA is open for business, says, hey, how about this? How about we don't pay any mortgage taxes? And how about we pay you $500,000? 2007, that's the deal. That's what happened. Athens didn't get a penny. The state didn't get a penny. The IDA got $500,000 for the stroke of a pen. In 2012, another $300 million refinance. This time I'm the town supervisor. This time the county has enacted its own mortgage tax. So now you've got another player, the county, who actually has a little bit of influence over the IDA, but doesn't exert any. And the town. And the IDA knows I mean business. So this time they said, hey, Athens, we're going to give you some of your money. And county, we're going to give you some of your money, but we're going to take $440,000 from Athens, $440,000 from the county, and $720,000 from the state. So Athens Gen wasn't saving a penny. It was just a deal where who was receiving the money was being shifted to the IDA. So the people of Athens and me, Mike, you may have been there, our current supervisor, I don't know back then. We stood up, we made our case, and the IDA changed its mind. Athens got every penny it was supposed to get. Greene County got every penny it was supposed to get, even though they didn't show up and fight for their own citizens' interests. And the state got ripped off by $720,000, but that's round off error to them. So now here we are, presently. The application is for $33 million of improvements. That's less than 10% of the value of the plant, but for some reason that justifies renewing an entire pilot as if this new expenditure was the full 400, 500, 600, $750 million. I mean, right now it's on the books for $640 million full market value or thereabouts. So The IDA writes a statement of findings. And basically, they're scaring us into believing that this power plant is going to go away. Well, the town's expert, Lawrence Farbstein, I think, explained that it's not going to go away. This plant is going to be here, whether they're on the tax rolls, paying their full fair share or not. They are not going anywhere. In fact, on pages 14 and 15 of the draft IDA findings, you'll see some explanation of why this plant will be here. It's young and it's very important in our power grid. So if the pilot doesn't go through, this power plant will still be here and will be functioning for the foreseeable future for the full 20 years of this pilot or more. So in 2022, Athens Gen and the town of Athens, the town is the assessing unit. Nobody else. We have the skill sets on our staff, including an assessor. Mr. Farbstein is a consultant. And the town of Athens and Athens Gen entered into an agreement 1 year ago that that plant is worth $640 million. The IDA does not have any skills to assess a power plant or even to assess my residential property for that matter. So nevertheless, the IDA comes in, same as before. It's a sweetheart relationship between Athens Gen and the IDA because they both make out and we don't. And the IDA has legal authority, by the way, in case you don't know. New York State statutes provide them with the authority to do exactly what they're doing. They don't need us to approve or even like it. They'll do it if they can make money on it. Okay. So now the IDA is in, town of Athens is out. The IDA renders the property tax exempt by virtue of controlling that property. That means the town of Athens has no legal authority anymore over taxing. The IDA has essentially snatched it. But did they do it to help us? No, they didn't do it to help us. They're not doing it to help us. They scared a couple of contractors. Those are exhibit A, B, and C, the people that came up and talked and said, oh, they're so important to our town. They're charitable, they're spin-off business. That isn't going to change. It's going to be exactly the same the day they go on the tax rolls. So I think the IDA was effective in scaring people essentially into believing that we need this pilot, which we do not need. The $33 million of investment, facility upgrades, that's typical stuff. That's going to happen also regardless of the pilot. That power plant is going to invest the $33 million so they can remain in operation efficiently, just like anybody else, just like we put roofs on this school occasionally. That's all it is. And this pilot does not incentivize it, nor does it make it more likely to happen. And then the IDA, you know, here's another way, maybe you can decide whose interests does the IDA serve. The statement of findings is replete. They want to drive home that $640 million compromise between Athens Gen and the town of Athens, the town of being the assessing jurisdiction, is excessive. How did the IDA decide it was excessive? The town's expert explained that the rationale in the statement of findings is nonsense. He didn't use those words, but it's nonsense. There are ways to value the value of a power plant, and it requires expertise, like Lawrence Farbstein and others that know the business, that have to know all of the ins and outs about the physical plant, et cetera, and know the accepted techniques to value such huge commercial enterprises. And the IDA does not have the wherewithal to do it, not on its staff, and not even, I don't believe, they have a consultant, because the statement of findings is the record here. And if it's not in there, it's not done. And there's no mention of the IDA hiring any expert consultants. So there's no grounds, no justification for the IDA to say repeatedly that Athens' $640 million assessment is excessive. They undermine Athens because they're not interested in Athens. They just want to make their pilot look better than it really is. The IDA also, continuing its fear factor motivation, tries to tell us that hey, if they go back on the tax rolls, you're going to be in litigation forever, tax certiorari litigation. The tax certiorari is just a typical part of our government. It is nothing to fear. We could all take tax certioraries on our residential properties if we want, if we believe that the assessor has overvalued our property. It's just typical American government legal system stuff. Parties usually settle those things. But the IDA preempted Athens settling with Athens Gen because they snatched Athens's role right out from underneath it. Now Athens can't negotiate with Athens Gen because you've negotiated already. And you're going to get paid handsomely for it. And you haven't added any value to this project whatsoever. In fact, you siphoned off a lot of value, and I'm going to get to that. Finally, it pits the county versus the town. The statement of findings. The county is probably saying, "Oh my God, if there's tax certiorari, we have to make the town whole, and we're going to be out millions of dollars." Well, remember, we can settle these matters. The IDA is negotiating with Athens Gen right now. They don't have magical negotiating skills. The IDA has a staff of 1 and counsel. So if the county is worried that they're going to incur a large liability, that's nonsense. It's time for the county and the town to step up, be big boys, and fulfill their function. And these people should be back on the tax roll. All right. In terms of the reliability of the numbers in the IDA's statement of findings, they claim that Athens will receive, if plant goes on the tax rolls in the next 20 years, $13 million. But the numbers they use are all wrong. Using their method, which I'll just use it so that we're comparing apples and apples, putting in the right numbers, putting in the right tax rates for all the different jurisdictions, putting in a reasonable escalation over the years based on numbers that I can support and back up. You can go on the comptroller's website and see what the last 10 years, I think it's actually from 2012 to 2022. I don't remember the exact, maybe 2010 to 2020. For each one of these taxing jurisdictions, the town, the county, and the school district, how much have their property tax levies increased over that 10-year period? And the answer is not 1.5%. That's the escalation clause you guys are putting in, 1.5%. But you obviously did not access this data, which is available. It's not easy, but a little bit of due diligence gets you there. I found it. I'm a private citizen. Town of Athens, over the 10-year period of 2010 to 2020, property taxes went up annually 2.4%. The county, 3.1%, and the school district, 2.4%. When you're talking about compounding those numbers over a 20-year payment cycle, those are huge numbers. So it's not 13 million that the town will get, it's $27 million. Just by adjusting those rates of escalation. So they under predict the future income if the plant goes on the tax rolls, so that it's a favorable comparison to this lousy pilot deal that they're proposing. And it just gets worse. I mean, They're saying the school district would get 125 million, it's 209 million. They're saying the county would get 37 million, it's 58 million. I'm not even gonna do the fire district because it's round off, but essentially they're predicting $180 million for all the jurisdictions. It's 295 million. So I think in Greene County, you know, $110 million in 10 years is not something we would sneeze at. All right, I'm gonna wrap up, but give me a few minutes here. So let's talk about going back to whose interest being served. The original deal, 2002. The IDA, in a recent communication I had with the IDA, acknowledges that their fee was $751,000 back in 2002. They also negotiated a power payment agreement where the IDA, I'm sorry, Athens Gen would pay cash equivalent to a certain amount of power that they sell. There's a base of $200,000 a year, and then there's a true up based on how much power they actually sold. Over the course of 20 years, the IDA made $3.8 million, rounding down, on those power payments. The IDA negotiated the lion's share for itself, by the way, because they get 5/7 and Athens gets the rest. So then in the refi in 2007, they made a cool $500,000 for that stroke of a pen. Then in 2012, they actually did 2 refis and $640,000 for another stroke of the pen, $113,000 for another stroke of the pen. That's $5,835,000 that the IDA sucked out of this deal. That's value that the town of Athens could have had. The IDA did not need to be there. That plant was coming. It needed Athens, and you guys intervened and just started taking money out. And I think there was enough, and the IDA can interrupt me now if I'm wrong, in the very beginning of $2.5 million, in addition to the $751,000. In terms of power payment, I think there's another $200,000 or so, maybe over the next couple of years you might get. And now this new agreement, the IDA's fee will be $334,000 right from the rip. Then there will be $20,000 in monitoring fees over the next 20 years. And the power payments with true ups, probably another next 20 years, another $4 million. So they're gonna get another $4,350,000 out of this new deal. That is value that should come to the town of Athens, because it's unnecessary for the IDA to be involved. They don't provide any value. And also, you know, it's not only the IDA maybe taking care of that. It's Athens Gen takes care of the IDA too. They pay their IDA's attorney's fee for all the work being done on these deals. And not only that, it's a separate and direct engagement relationship. The IDA doesn't even know how much money Athens Gen pays IDA's attorney. They've agreed to indemnify the IDA if the IDA incurs any liabilities whatsoever relating to this deal. And if the IDA is ever on the receiving end of a lawsuit, say for improper use of its authority, Athens Gen is going to pay that too. So the IDA knows where its bread is buttered. They're shaking hands with Athens Gen, and they've got their back to you just like this, and they don't care. Thank you very much.
I'm Andrea Smallwood, I was the mayor of Athens, and I was here when the plant first came in, also the vehicle. I looked at the IDA, and thank you that Leanne hit a lot of the questions that I was concerned with when reading this pilot agreement. And I'm still, I now do real estate, and I still can't wrap my head around how you came up with $5,250,000 pilot payment based on what assessment? Now, I've heard FERC, who was mentioned earlier, had assessed this plant at 530 million. And the company now is saying that should be assessed at 250, and that the 400,000 that we spoke of is way above that. Well, when it was first built, the other question I had, it was at 1.24 billion. It took till 2022 for it to be lowered to this 640. Does the IDA just do pilots and then not look at assessments and just leave it and then say, oh yeah, the pilot's now up, we have to look at that assessment? I mean, none of the assessment and what is actually being paid makes any sense to me. And as far as what we're talking about improvements, I noted that only 15 million of this 33 million improvements will be done in 4 years from now. So if they go bankrupt again, these improvements still happen. Then in the 8th year, the rest of the 33 million for the improvements. So what happens if they do go bankrupt again? It seems to be a pattern with this company and what's going on. My other question is 31 employees. Are they full-time employees? Do they get benefits? Because you don't see many people or many cars there right now, I have to say. And once again, the village, who gets a lot of the pollution, is completely left out of this power sharing agreement. When PG&E, who originally built this, came to the village, they said, everyone's going to have free electric in Athens if we come in here. The village got nothing out of this. And I would think that that should be considered, that some of the village gets some power sharing, even though it's in the Catskill School District, and this very building in which we're sitting now gets the Coxsackie Athens School District. So basically, those are my questions, but my really concern is, how this number has come up. It's a pittance in what we're all assessed at, and we pay our full share of taxes here, and they're only going up. Thank you for your time.
Michael Black.
For people who are not ignorant, can you please identify yourselves and what your positions are?
I am so sorry. I am April Ernst, the Executive Director. I am joined by our counsel, Paul Goldman, our Chairman of the Board, Eric Hoagland, Chairperson, Fred Hendricks.
Thank you. Can you tell me what the annual budget of the IDA is?
It is on our website. I can't off the top of my head.
Roughly?
300,000 total, not including building parks.
Not including what?
Our annual budget is posted on our website. Off the top of my head, approximately 300,000. And that doesn't include building business parks that we also work on.
Can you explain what that means, building business parks?
No, it's not a question and answer. It's just public comment. If you want to reach out to me, I'll give you my business card.
So you're not going to answer any more questions?
This is a public comment period addressing Athens Gen and the incentives.
Thank you. I'll take it you will not answer any more questions. Another question I had is, how many jobs has the IDA created? And perhaps you could get back to me. I'll give you my contact.
Okay, I can tell you. 1,200.
Over what period of time?
20 years that I've been with the IDA.
And can you tell me if I'm correct that part of the facility is the Athens, new Athens generating facility is tunnel from the plant to the Hudson River for cooling water? Is that correct?
Project's well known. If you got comments on the financial assistance, please provide them. I don't want to be rude to you, but just, you know, the project scope is well known. It's been well known for 20 years.
I'll take that as a yes. Thank you.
Michael Bulich.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Mike Bulich. I am a resident of Catskill and a property owner in the town of Athens. I also pay school taxes to this Catskill School District. A lot of good points were brought up here. First and foremost, I guess, is a little explanation why pilots are handed out, because if we didn't hand out pilots, big companies, no companies would come here to New York because our government spends too much and taxes too much. Counties tax too much, school districts tax too much, towns and villages tax too much in New York. We're a highly regulated, highly taxed state. So my question for you, potentially, and some may know this answer, is what was collected in taxes for the 3 districts that received taxes before there was a plant there, as opposed to what is collected now?
It wasn't incentivized, Mike. That's my whole point.
Your argument with the IDA may be valid. I mean, I'm a business owner. I understand, but I'm a business owner too, and I pay full taxes.
But let's try to make sure.
I understand. I get that, Lee.
Okay.
All right, I'm a legislator, but that has nothing to do with it. I'm a business owner. I'm a property taxpayer also. All right, now, plants, just like people who have businesses with equipment, it depreciates. Your equipment wears out. So the plant itself will depreciate through time. At least this is my opinion. Pipes depreciate, pipes wear out, pipe walls get thin, roofs get worn out. Excuse me? It's part of doing business.
Okay.
No, but my point is what would Athens or the county would have had to pony up as other owners of property if Athens Gen wasn't here and government grew at 2.5% over 10 years or 20 years. But what my point is, what would the burden have been on the other property owners? And nobody wants to answer that. How is it not relevant?
Sure. Hold on. Oh, okay. Hold on. Oh, wait. We have a stenographer here. Please have some courtesy to her. She's got to take down the minutes of this. So let's not have a back and forth. If you want to say something to challenge Mr.
That's all my point. Now, if someone can come up with those numbers and get them to the public, that's great. I just would like to know those numbers.
Just please, everyone understand, have some empathy for the stenographer. It's a very, very tough job. And when people talk back and forth and yell at each other, the record becomes a mess. So please, let's treat each other with the way we should, the way we started. Thank you.
So that's all my point is I know that my taxes would have gone up maybe 5% every year over the last 10 years if Athens Gen wasn't here. That's just my point. You just want to balance out tax revenue and a tax base. Well, if you don't have an expanding tax base, your tax rate is going to go up. So that's my point. Thank you.
Thank you.
Leo Palmetier,
Well, I basically deferred my time earlier,
okay.
but if you'll give me 2 seconds,
Sure.
I'll address the question that he asked. And I'll bring it back
Can you
to
come up
my-
and speak into the microphone,
Sure.
please?
I generally don't need one, but I'm happy to. Mike, just to address your question, if that logic were applied, there would be no businesses in Athens. So I don't get it. I have a business, no tax break. Restaurants, no tax break. Carry them on down. You get no tax break. You're not leaving. I didn't leave. The restaurants haven't left. Athens Gen's going nowhere. That's it. Thank you for your time.
So at this time, does anybody else want to speak? Are you?
Yes,
Okay, your name?
Matthew Rosales.
And you can come up.
Yeah, okay.
Just state your name for those.
Sure. Hi, Matthew Rosales. I'm a resident here in Athens, not affiliated with government, plant, IDA, et cetera. One of the points that I wanted to bring up when I was going through the document, the key piece of information that is a little bit of the elephant in the room, and thanks for highlighting that, is what financial capability does the plant have to actually pay taxes in general? And there was no financial analysis in that document of the plant ability. There was reference to the bankruptcies, but if anybody's been through a bankruptcy or know how the process works, that a bankruptcy, especially a voluntary one, is where you are seeking protection from your creditors. So in other words, the plant might have been totally profitable, but had too high debt load, or it had contracts, let's say fixed prices for power, for example. The previous speakers have already discussed that this is a peaker plant, so it only comes online when there's high demand on the power grid. High demand means high prices. And since that financial information wasn't available, did a little bit of look online. Energy is highly regulated. You can download quite easily power rates, wholesale power rates for the Northeast. Last year, as we all know here, our power got very expensive because of the high natural gas prices. Their generating costs also went up. So in a typical year, this is according to S&P, the Athens plant generates at something like $20 to $40 per megawatt hour. They generate about 1.7 million megawatt hours. So that's 1.7 trillion watt hours of power. And they're doing that in a typical year between $20 and $40. Last year was about 70 because of the high natural gas prices. But the prices that were paid to the grid at peak loads were about $270 per megawatt hour. So if you back that out, that's a profit, a gross operating margin for the plant from somewhere between $331 million, or at the low end, if you're assuming the average price for the year, about $31 million. In either case, at the low end, that's something like a 30% gross margin. I know there's a lot of operating businesses in the area, especially restaurants. Nobody operates at a 30% margin. So when we're talking about, I just wanted to lay the foundation for and this is the analysis that should have been in the report. So I think my position here is that report is very misleading. And the financial analysis that all of us wanted to see is what is their capability to pay taxes? And are those taxes actually going to endanger that business's ability to pay operating costs, painting, maintenance, et cetera? And is that going to impact their ability to pay taxes? Again, in the bankruptcy proceeding, or even in a debt payment, the taxes always come out before your payments to creditors. So even if the plant had the financial capability to pay taxes, there might not have been enough money left over if they had, say, $1 billion in debt on a plant. The current holding company, which is a question that came up, is a operating subsidiary of a bank that has basically taken possession over the plant. They will eventually sell it again. Banks don't want to operate assets like power plants. They want to get, 10 cents or 20 cents or 30 cents back on their dollar for their loans that they put out. But when you have a plant that generated, and again, this is a conservative estimate, $31 million last year, they can absolutely pay the money that was being requested of them in the tax revenue. So, and again, if you look at same numbers, you say, okay, what were they making back in 2020, 2019? I mean, we're talking like 60% gross margins. The plant is going to be very important. As we know, a lot of people are going to renewables. Renewables don't run all the time. That's why you need natural gas peaker plants like this. When it's cloudy or the wind isn't blowing, these plants come online, they generate power, they keep our lights on. So the plant is not going anywhere. It will continue to be a citizen in this area. and again, the information, the financial information would have been very helpful from the IDA, but, you know, we're supposed to be a democracy, and having some organization going and doing deals with a company that absolutely should be paying its fair share in taxes is really egregious. So strong opposition to this proposal. Thank you.
Sorry, I do have a page 8. Carrie Gardner.
No, I'm short. So, I just want to start by saying, I like electricity a lot. We use it all the time. But I think there's one thing that has not been considered in all of this, and that is the law of New York State. The, let me make sure I say it right. The Climate Leadership and Community Protection Act. The goal of the CLCPA is to eliminate 100% of the climate pollution caused by humans, calling for an 85% reduction in greenhouse gas emissions by 2050. I actually think that's a little late for the situation we're in. With an interim target of 40% by 2030. That's only 7 years from now. There's also been a recent report by the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change that, in essence, I won't read the quotes that I have on my paper here, but basically it's saying that humans are causing the heating of the planet. And if we don't do something soon, we're really screwed. So, in essence, what I want to say about this IDA issue is perhaps it's time to stop granting this gas burning energy plant the benefit of a pilot and let the corporate owners pay their fair share of taxes. That's the essence of this. So let's do the right thing and deny this pilot. And please, after this meeting, see me about another major issue with the Iroquois expansion project. 1/4 of a mile away from the generating plant.
Chris, you want to come up? I just need your name stated for the record. What's up?
I have a written report I want to give you.
Okay, thank you.
Have to take your glasses off when you get old. I have some questions, and I've reviewed the finding statement, plus a lot of review on the New York State website. So my questions, and I'll be fairly quick so people can have the opportunity to come up. The original Athens Gen pilot of 20 years is completed. The IDA is proposing an additional 20-year pilot, the same pilot that has just been completed. My review of General Municipal Law Article 18A, 859-A, additional prerequisite to provision of the financial assistance, and 858, which is the purpose and the powers of the IDA, indicates to me that is unclear whether an IDA can extend or renew a completed 20-year pilot. If the proposed pilot is approved, the IDA board will have granted a 40-year pilot. My estimated loss of property taxes over the 40 years will be $68 million for the new pilot, plus my estimate completed pilot is a loss of $50 million in property taxes. The total being an estimated loss of $138 million in tax dollars for this Catskill School District, of which I am a resident, the town of Athens, and Greene County. The IDA notes in its pilot summary that 31 staff and the estimated payroll of $4,500,000 would continue. Compare that to what if the Catskill School District, 1,300 students and staff of approximately 236, with a salary of $24,788,000, does not keep up with the cost of operating the school. It would maybe need a possible 60% majority vote to even get a school budget passed. How did the IDA calculate the beginning balance of $5,250,000 for a 20-year pilot? What was the source? Would a revised town assessment render the proposed pilot null? What financial information and the source of the financial information used in evaluating this pilot? Is the financial information subject to the Freedom of Information Act? LNB Company is a private equity firm formed in 2010. It's in Dallas Parkway, Plano, Texas. It is a registered foreign corporation. How much financial liquidity does this equity company have to underwrite Athens Gen in lieu of the pilot agreement? I mean, if you looked at the chart that I have in my payroll for LNV Corporation, Athens Gen goes directly back to NLV Corporation, and it is operated by Robert Ackerman. This is a venture capitalist company. They're there to make money. They're there to take any tax break they can get. They're not interested in the company. I'm not interested in the town, the village, or a school district. Interested in making money. That's what venture capitalists do. Athens Gen was, one more statement, then we got it. Athens Gen was given the opportunity over the last 20 years, an estimated $50 million reduction in property taxes to aid their growth in the industry. Based on their performance, another pilot would be futile. Athens Gen must negotiate with the town of Athens a reasonable assessment for property tax purpose. The IDA needs to exit the process. I think that we're an indentured system now. The IDA has indentured all of us for 40 years. Thank you very much.
Do I have anybody else who'd like to speak? Just state your name.
Hi, everyone. My name is Kate Collinson. I'm a resident of Athens, and I wrote this out because I'm not intelligent, as some of you. So as many of us know, there are health risks associated with combined cycle natural gas power plants, which this plant is. Health risks are associated with direct emissions, which include nitrous oxides and volatile organic compounds. Additionally, secondary emissions, which form in the environment after the release of nitrous oxide and VOCs, include ozone and particulate matter, PM 2.5, if you're familiar with it. So nitrous oxide causes and is related to a number of respiratory problems, including asthma and bronchitis. Particulate matter and ozone, which are formed as secondary emissions, are associated with an extensive list of adverse health outcomes, including, and very particularly relevant to me right now, preterm birth, low birth weights, postnatal, neonatal mortality, and then lung cancer and respiratory illnesses. So it's a risk for us all to be living this close to a power plant like this. And whether or not we feel that risk is justified or not, we should still be benefiting from the plant being this close, and I don't think the pilot should be extended further, and I think the plant should be paying its fair share of taxes if we're going to take on this risk.
Anybody else? So at this time, I'd like to close the meeting at 7:22. Thank you. But the next process is, we'll get the minutes, and then the IDA council will formulate our responses, and they will all be posted to our website. That is www.greenida.com. Thank you.